So we heard your request in the comments for more Steam Deck videos. Well, not more, but particularly one type of Steam Deck video. Everyone wants to know how well will this thing theoretically emulate. No one really asked me about what titles to emulate or what console, so I kind of just threw as much on there as I could to see what happens. Now, this is not a guide on how to emulate, and I'm not telling you how to get your files to emulate with. Now, you should get your ROMs legally through your consoles or through a disk drive, depending on the system. So for example, I have a moddable Switch, exploitable, so I'm able to actually go in, do the custom firmware, and rip the cartridge ROMs off of it directly. So again, 100% legal. I can't endorse any other method of getting the files. You know, you do your own research and you find your own ways to do it. Emulation's kind of a tough one anyways. So we're running our classic Steam Deck simulator, and it's running a Ryzen 3100 at 3.4 gigahertz, a Radeon 5500 XT running at as low as it'll go, 1.6 teraflop equivalent. And again, we know teraflops to teraflops, Navi 1, Navi 2 isn't perfect, but we have a few videos on that, so try and check them out if you're a little more curious on why we've selected this hardware and why we've gone with these speeds. Fairly confident this will line up pretty well though. So then, what games did I emulate and what consoles did I emulate? So to start with, for the fun one, let's emulate the Switch. See what happens. First title I want to start with is Animal Crossing, and I'm sorry Animal Crossing fans out there, I do not like this game. This is Gab's copy, and I've played for maybe 30 seconds and I'm already like, this is not for me. So as you can see here, it's kind of hard to see maybe. You might have to zoom in when you're covering it in the bottom right there. I'm getting about 30 FPS, which I can only assume is the default frame rate for the game. I can't imagine this being some 60 hertz title. Why would you bother? And if you look at the stats here, the CPU is actually getting utilized fairly well, which is pretty nice for an emulator. Sometimes they're kind of hit or miss with multi-threading. And the GPU is running at a blistering 540 megahertz at like 78% utilization. So this game runs okay, but you will have the occasional stutter when it does shader compiling, I guess. I don't know, I'm gonna get roasted for saying it. So when it has to compile shaders, you'll get some stuttering, some hitching, and that's for pretty much every emulator I've tested with. I'm using Vulkan, of course. OpenGL might be better. You can possibly download already pre-compiled shaders, but I'm running an AMD card on Windows, so Vulkan is the way to go. OpenGL is not happening for me. Yeah, if I ran Linux maybe, but Steam Deck, sure, it'll run Linux, but I'm willing to bet money that I can't make up, most people running the Steam Deck on Linux that are like, it just works. They're not gonna go through the hassle of getting emulators working on it. It'll run through Proton, they ain't touching it. So we're doing Windows. So that's Animal Crossing, not really a very intense title. And you probably wouldn't notice much hitching on it anyways. It's a cozy game. It's for fun. I'm gonna go ahead and launch a game that I'm a bit more familiar with, that I have a love-hate relationship with. I'm gonna launch Smash Bros. It needs to run at 60 hertz, and I will notice very quickly, and anybody that plays the game will notice very quickly if there's any hitching. Emulating Smash Bros. Has actually gotten kind of popular as of late, because the online is so bad on that game that people are running an emulator and then using a remote access software like Parsec to play like you're playing on a local machine, and that's faster than running off of Nintendo Wi-Fi. So there's tons of guides on how to... Okay, so emulating is not perfect, and sometimes it crashes. That's okay, you give it some time. It's okay, buddy. But yeah, there's tons of guides on how to run Yuzu with Smash Bros. Over Parsec, so I feel like that might actually be a fairly common use case for this kind of setup for the Steam Deck if you're emulating.
Can you imagine taking your Steam Deck to the local? Yeah, here guys. Wait a minute, that's not a Switch.
It's a Switch Pro. Funny enough, I tried to put Melee on my Switch and I wanted to take that to a local. So I thought we were playing Smash Bros, guys. So let's do a quick game of Smash here. This is not my normal controller, so don't make fun of me too much, guys. Smash is a game that's a lot more sensitive to the whole shader issue, so be prepared for that. I had to go through and take the game and set it up with a bot battle for the characters I want to play and just let it run. And man, that thing hitched. It was bad. But once that's good, it's good. So if you want to play with friends or whatever, ask them ahead of time what characters they want to play and on what stages, and just let it run overnight. I'm going to go ahead and embarrass myself with a character I actually do not play much. My boy Falcon. And we can just see... Oh no, I put random for enemy. Oh, this is beautiful. So you're going to see the shaders and the stuttering most likely whenever a villager tries to do a move. See, there it goes. I'm getting, what, 57 now? CPU is still getting used pretty well. I already did Falcon shaders and I already did this map, so shouldn't be too bad. I need a knee for the video. It's actually running pretty well now. That's interesting. Because it was a stutter fest before. So, runs pretty well.
Yeah, it looks pretty good.
I'm actually surprised. Building 10 shaders. Okay, I think that's... Actually, oh, shoot. I didn't notice that. The background isn't correct. So, welcome to emulating. Yeah, I got the knee! Well, welcome to emulating. There's always some weird little fixes and modifications that you have to do. Maybe that hasn't been brought up because literally no one plays that map. I don't have an answer for that, and that's not the system's fault. That's probably a setting I'm missing somewhere, or maybe Yuzu just doesn't like that stage. This actually might make it stutter a bit more because it's 2 characters, although I did this stage already. Okay, so FD with the default background is totally, or not FD, Battlefield with the default background, fine. Still some stutters. Oh, oh. Mr. Snack. All right, so I think that's about it for the Switch emulation there. I have a Switch already, and I don't really think there's much in terms of like upscaling or anything like that for it yet. So it's like, I'll just play on my actual console for now. We'll stick with the Nintendo games or consoles for now. Let's go to Cemu. So we're gonna go ahead and launch Breath of the Wild. Bit of a heavier game than Animal Crossing, I guess. So with Cemu, whatever. I have async shader compile on. So it kind of just does it in the background a bit better. Well, not better, faster, rather. So instead of getting these huge just stutters and chugs while it's trying to compile shaders and some pipeline nonsense, instead you just get like kind of some pop in here and there. Although it is only running at 20 FPS right now. Am I actually bottlenecked by the GPU? Or is it the CPU? Who knows? It could be anything on this console system. I don't know what I'm bottlenecked by. I got nothing. Okay, so you see up there, compiled new shader, compiled new pipeline. And that's less about frame rate and more about stutter. So I don't know, does Breath of the Wild run at 20 FPS on the Wii U? I know there's like a 60 FPS patch, but we're not touching that with this system, guys. Yeah, I don't know, maybe it runs at 20, which is terrifying to think. No, it can't be running at 20. I'm moonwalking, man. Moon jumping? Okay, so Breath of the Wild's a little harder to run. Maybe there's some graphical tweaking or something of that nature that we can do. But again, I kind of just gotta leave that as a do your own research kind of thing. I'm gonna go ahead and just give you a rough idea of what the system can run at. Doesn't really seem like there's a lot of options anyways for that sort of stuff. So do your own research, do your own tweaking. It's just kind of like, here's the baseline, will it run at all? And 20 FPS. Correct me if I'm wrong, maybe this is what the game runs at on the Wii U. Let's try Smash 4. It's the same kind of concept, competitive, 60 FPS. It has to be 60 FPS game. You can't run a Smash game at less than that. Because how do you know frame inputs if your frames aren't 60? What does a 6 frame input be if you're getting 30 FPS? Is it a 12 frame input? No, it's still 6 frames, but the milliseconds, you see, like, it's madness. You just devolve into madness. I think I played Smash 4 literally one time, and I'm like, this ain't for me, chief. So let's see, what are we getting here? 60 FPS. Yeah, solid 60. So I don't know what the deal with Breath of the Wild is. It's probably just a heavier title, honestly. Yeah, so you can see on the top left there, it's compiling more shaders because I hadn't really done much with kind of preloading Robin here. Ooh, yeah, that fire flower. Oof, frame rate. So you can play Smash 4, which I don't know why you'd play Smash 4, but you can. So at least that's one title on the Wii U that will operate. Alrighty then, I guess we go back another tier. Where did my copy of Brawl go? Don't say we don't love you guys, this took forever. like every single one of my videos. So, I mean, I don't have it set to... Wow, it's actually got a ton of headroom left, though. Look at the utilization. So this is something to kind of take note of. The GPU is just bored. It's funny, though. With modern games, we're looking at this system, we're like, oh, it's not CPU bottlenecked, it's GPU bottlenecked. You know, what's a 1 point whatever teraflop GPU really going to do? So in normal titles, you're probably going to be GPU bottlenecked with the Steam Deck. The GPU is surprisingly powerful, but it's still not up to par with the, you know, what we're running at, Zen 2 cores? Yeah, it's not up to par for Zen 2 cores. That's pretty solid. But with emulation, it's kind of the other way around. The CPU ends up being the bottleneck for a lot of emulators. You'll see that particularly when we hit up the, well, not the next system, but the system, when we hit up the PS3, you'll see that. So I would go ahead and run Melee on here, but if Brawl runs, Melee is gonna run. So let's go ahead and launch a different game. I love this game. Did I ever beat it? No. Did I ever own the game? Yeah. I wasn't allowed to have good games as a kid. Time Splitters. Now that was the game you played at a party. You got your buddy with his PS2. You put in 2 multi-taps, and you got 8 people on a screen with a little sliver of screen this big, and you get killed by the weird monkey. Pretty sure there's a monkey. No, I wanted to be the monkey. I don't know what frame rate this is supposed to run at. Apparently 60. Woo, baby. Look at that. That's smooth. Is this a laser shotgun? Because it looks kind of like a shotgun, but it shoots lasers and they bounce forever, it seems. Obviously, I could set it to more players, more characters, but the GPU is like at 4%, man. It's just like, yeah, buddy, we could run this game. I could run this game all day long. All right, so that's Dolphin. So we've done GameCube, Wii, Wii U, and Switch. So let's go ahead and try out PS3. That's the one I was mostly worried about. Like, that's the heavy system here. PS3 actually has some crazy architecture behind it too. Like, you think Alder Lake with its Big Little knockoff? They're not calling it Big Little, but that's what you call it with ARM. You think that's complicated, like big cores and small cores? Go look at the cell processor in the PS3. It's like 9 asymmetrical cores, I want to say, and then like one of them isn't allowed. I think it's only for the OS. But you got like all these cores and they're different sized and different. And it's just like, how do I develop for this? That's why PS3 games sometimes look kind of rough. Sometimes, like, go look at PS3, what was it, Skyrim, I think? I forget, it was like Skyrim or one of those, or Oblivion, one of those titles, it is not happy. So another thing to keep in mind with emulation is not all titles are created equal, and not all titles will run well. You may look at a game and go, you know, that game looks easy to run, it should be fine. But then you find out the developers did some crazy specific optimizations. That's why consoles keep up for so long compared to a much more powerful PC, is that developers do crazy levels of optimization. So there's like, I forget what it was. There was like a Super Nintendo game that like wasn't able to be emulated properly till recently because of how specific, like, it hooked into some crazy, weird, very specific piece of hardware and bug basically in the console. So with RPCS3, it'll show you compatibility. I think Yuzu for the Switch does as well, but you might have to do your own research again. Welcome to emulation. I know I keep saying do your own research, but it's a lot of that. For specific titles, there's tons of posts. Like, again, there's a whole wiki for is this game playable or not. You'll have unplayable, you'll have title, you'll have in-game, and you'll have playable. And you're like, well, in-game's playable, right? Technically. Technically, it's playable. But this is a game I really wanted to run on here because you can't get it anywhere else. And everyone loves the sequel, but I haven't played the original, so why am I playing the sequel? It's like watching Infinity War without seeing the other movies, which is what I did, and I was very confused. So right here, I'm getting a whopping 15 FPS in a cutscene. And if you look at the chart, my GPU is still only running at like 30-something%. It's clocked at, well, it keeps jumping between 400 and 500 megahertz. But if you look at my CPU utilization, that thing is slammed. All the cores are getting hit. Alrighty, so this is the extent of this game. That's why it says in-game and not playable. I'm in-game, but I would never force anybody to play this. I'm getting between 15 and 18 FPS. The CPU is basically saturated, and the GPU is still kind of bored. Now you may think, Well, that's a limitation of this hardware, but we took it and we put it on Gab's system with a 5950X and a 6900 XT, and the game still ran at like 20 FPS on a good day. So this game is definitely not playable. Do not try and emulate the PS3 just for this game if that's what you're after. You're better off finding an old PS3 laying around somewhere and just going with that. So I'm gonna launch a different game, one that was kind of early on launch that looks pretty good still, all things considered. And I enjoyed the crap out of this game. I'd go over to my friend's house and like, yo, let me play Resistance. Oh, and the poor guy had to play co-op with me. Gab can vouch for it. Playing co-op with me is a nightmare in pretty much every game.
Why do you need to shoot everything that's explosive? Specifically when it's next to me.
So this is Resistance Fall of Man. I don't know if I mentioned it earlier. One of the earlier titles in the system's launch. You're fighting like aliens, I think, or something. It's been a long time. I'm kind of old, guys. So it's like a double-edged sword. Like, I don't know if you could hear Gab saying that, but he's asking, hey, well, it's early on in the console's life. Maybe it's not using as many specific optimizations, so it, you know, it can emulate better. Oh, grenade launcher. So that's a fair point, but it's kind of a double-edged sword. Because earlier titles are kind of janky sometimes. So you'll notice that as the console lifetime goes on, you'll see games getting better and better. Like again, man, you had Oblivion on the Xbox 360, and then you had Skyrim, and you're like, the same console runs both of these? Yeah, they got better at yeah, they got better at coding for it. Wow, look at this guy. He's all. Ew, these guys are gross. They're like those anglerfish, but with guns. Later titles may be more optimized for the system, but they also may be understood better. And maybe the rigging and coding they're doing is a bit more standardized. Early games, man, you're just throwing stuff at the wall and going, man, I hope this cell processor keeps up.
I hope people buy this.
Please. I know it's $600 at launch. Sony, why? But, like, come on, guys. Buy it. It looks cool. But honestly, looking at this, I think I actually have headroom to go. It's running at 30 FPS. 30 zone. So it's running at 30 FPS in the 30 zone, funny enough. And the system's still kind of, I got cores to spare, I've got utilization to spare, so this game will run pretty dang well. But it's marked as playable. So there's the difference between playable and in-game. And then good old-fashioned Soul Calibur 5. I do not know how to play this game, so forgive me, lads and lasses. CPU is getting hit a lot harder in this title, but it's a later title, so I'd kind of expect that. GPU is still kind of bored to tears. What is this thing I'm fighting? Is this a custom character? Stop. I don't know how to block. Oh, I'm getting busted here. It stutters a little bit in this game. It's not terrible, but it does drop to like 40 in some situations here. Seriously, I don't even know how to block. So there's Soul Calibur 5. You can kind of see it fluctuate. So I don't know, PS3 emulation's asking a bit much out of a system like that. It's kind of rough to run on some modern hardware anyways, but in theory, with the right game and with the right tolerance for frame drops, it should run. What consoles do I have left? PS2, I guess. Oh, you'll see what game I picked, and you'll be like, really? Alrighty. Alright, Gab, are you ready?
Yeah.
Take a look. Come on. Don't tell me you expected better out of me.
I expected nothing and I was still disappointed.
Oh, that's some corruption there. That ain't happy. Apparently Shrek is just too dang powerful for this system. Honestly, I would be amazed if we had trouble running any PS2 titles on this thing. The PS2 emulator is pretty well optimized. I used to run it on my old laptop with a Pentium dual core. Well, at the time it wasn't a Pentium dual core anymore. It was an i5 Sandy Bridge Mobile. But what am I getting? Frame rate rise. Yeah, basically lock 60. This ain't going nowhere, boys. Okay, so yeah, the PlayStation 2 runs fine. I know I only tested the one game, but trust me, I ran this on an old laptop. It's pretty well optimized at this point. But let's talk about systems I didn't try. So, to start off with, let's talk about the 360. Now, the 360 has an emulator now. I think it's called Xenia, but it's got, I think 18% of titles are playable. It's not really up there yet. and I just didn't want to bother touching it. I don't think it would run well on my current hardware, let alone on one of these. It's not ready. Then there's the original Xbox, not the Xbox One. The Xbox OG, Classic, I don't know what to call it. Microsoft, please stop. If you guys are watching this channel, you probably have a good idea about PC hardware. So it's like, why can't I run OG Xbox games on my PC? The OG Xbox was running like a GeForce card and a Pentium 3, I want to say. But there's just no emulator for it. I think there's one that's like very early on, but there's been no interest. Mostly because what games are on the OG Xbox that you already can't play on Windows? For the most part, most of the titles are already available on other platforms, so why bother? Other systems I didn't touch. You've got like the Vita, the PSP, obviously you got like the N64 and stuff like that. Anything like the N64 of that era will run on this. I don't have to pull it up, I don't have to say anything. Flat out, it will run. Because it runs on my old phone. Like my phone from 2014. So, those titles will run. I'm fairly confident that Citra with the 3DS will run too. I can run that on my current phone. This thing's faster. So there we go. There's emulation on our Steam Deck simulator. We've been able to show that you can run PS2, GameCube, Wii, Wii U, and Switch games pretty well, and some PS3 games with some caveats. Older systems should be fine, and various titles are kind of on a system-by-system, title-by-title basis. But honestly, I'm looking forward to it. When we get our Steam Deck, man, I'm gonna load that sucker up with some games. It's like, why not? Like, I can do what Gab said and bring Smash on my Steam Deck to Eternity. So yeah, that's it for this video. If you have any more questions, suggestions, or anything like that regarding, well, anything, but especially the Steam Deck simulator, hit me up in the comments or hop on our Discord. Like the video, get subscribed, you know, all that fun stuff. And be sure to check out some of our other Steam Deck content. If you have questions about Linux or modern games or SD cards or anything like that, we've got a ton of content on that, and you know, we'd love to keep you guys up to date and in the loop. So yeah, have a nice time, and looking forward to our Steam Deck.